Okay, hey, thanks everybody for joining us on CodeChat. My name is Jeremy Foster, and I'm here today with John Sonmez. How you doing, John?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. And as you can tell, I'm not in the studio today. We are actually on location in Utah at is it called the Grand America Hotel?
Yes, I keep on calling it Great America, and people are like, well, you're staying at Great America?
Somebody else called it Little America. I said, no, that's different. That's a truck stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really classy place. As you can see, there's gold frills on the carpet, so it's just a little too fancy for me. But anyway, it's nice. It's great getting together with a bunch of smart people and talking about all of the courses on Pluralsight. We're here with a bunch of authors, and one of them is John. And John, how many courses do you have in the Pluralsight repository now?
55.
That's pretty amazing. That's a lot. Now, you just told me today that 30 of those went in 1 year. Is that right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, there was a year where Aaron was pushing to get 400 courses created that year, and I was working a full-time job, and I said, this is the time to strike. And I said, hey, I'm thinking about quitting my job. If I could do 30 courses for you guys this year, could you commit to commissioning them? And they're like, oh yeah, definitely. But I don't know if you can do 30 of them. So.
Sounds crazy. And how was it? It was a year. Was it a hell year? Was it terrible?
It was a hell year. It was a lot of work. I mean, it was one of those things where I did a blog post a while back and said, what would you do for $1 million? Like, how would it change your mindset? And like, if someone offered you, if you do this thing, I will pay you this. And I realized that that was the question being asked to me. And so I basically worked like a dog, like 60 to 70, 80-hour weeks, most weeks, Monday through Sunday, every single day for pretty much the entire year to get that done, because this was my golden opportunity to do this. The Pluralsight was taking off like a rocket. This was, that no one else was doing this. I had the chance to really set myself apart and get an opportunity that might not ever come again.
Well, and then you can make that decision in a day, but the crazy part is that all throughout that year you've got to decide to go back to that computer on your own. You don't even have a boss breathing down your neck, right?
Right, yeah. It was definitely challenging. It was something that was really difficult to do, but I put a really good system into place that I had been building ahead of time that I sort of run my life on, and that helped me to get through it, because I knew what I was supposed to do every day. I had commitments, I had planned it out, and I had the goal in mind. I knew where I needed to get, those key components that kept me on track and kept me going, even though some days you don't feel like
you
really don't want to hear yourself talking anymore, and so
I know sometimes I'm working on just my second course, and sometimes I'm staring at my outline and there's nothing coming, there's nothing coming to my mind. But one of the things that you mentioned was that it helps when you've got some sort of a deadline that's imposed, because boy, this has got to get out now, and that might even spark some inspiration if that's what you're waiting for.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes those constraints can make us be more creative, and we're just forced to, if you start producing on a system and you get used to it, you eventually get to the point where you can at will bring the inspiration that you need.
Yeah.
I forget the quote. There was this quote. I wish I knew the exact quote, but essentially it was in this book, War of Art, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, and he had mentioned that this famous author, someone had asked him, is it true that you wait until inspiration comes, or that you just write? Right, and he's very prolific, and he said, it just so happens that every morning at precisely 9 a.m. inspiration comes. and that stuck with me. It's like, you can make it if you are committed, if you have the time, if you're scheduled out, you can force yourself to produce. You can you might not like what you're producing, but a lot of times if you go forth and you sit down and you actually just start doing the work, you'll get into the groove. It might only take you like 15 or 20 minutes, and then pretty soon it's flowing. So
well, the fallacy is, we call inspiration a muse, that we wait to come visit our door, when really it's us.
Right.
It's just us.
Yeah, exactly. It's the hustle. The hustle is really the key. It's like, if you're going to get there and get up every day and show up, most people won't. Most people will wait. They go on their mood or how they feel, and they don't have a true sense of commitment. But if you can be committed and have consistency, then you will you'll be able to produce.
Yeah. Okay, so like you mentioned, Pluralsight is on fire. It's the place to go for technical training online. And it's gigantic. I mean, thousands of courses. And I think a lot of people don't know this yet, but Pluralsight purchased digital tutors, and if you want to learn anything creative, holy cow, if you want to learn Adobe Illustrator, there's just 1 million courses for that alone, you know?
Yep.
So it's pretty awesome. A young person today could actually choose a self-learning track over college. And this is, somebody brought this question up, and this has really been chewing on me. If I was to talk to a family member, I don't know how I would advise them. You want to talk about how you would advise them?
Yeah, so I've actually written about this quite a bit, and I go back and forth on this, but there's a few things that I think about, right? When I started out my career, I was self-taught. I didn't have my degree. In fact, I went into school, and I dropped out early because I was already making money as a software developer as much as I planned to make when I graduated school. I said, well, that doesn't make sense to go to school. You know, I'm already self-taught. And so as I progressed in my career, I actually went back to school and did correspondence school at night in order to just get the degree, to get the piece of paper.
Yeah, right.
And that's what it really was doing, because at that point I had already taught myself, and I'd learned to learn. I'd learned to teach myself. So that's the most important skills, to learn to teach yourself, right? But a lot of times I'll advise developers today that are starting out, just go, you might as well get the paper, because it's not going to hurt you. If you're going to go into a corporate job, right?
Yeah.
Then you can't expect a school or a degree to teach you anything. You have to learn how to learn, but it can't hurt you to have that, right? It's not going to hurt you, because some people are going to judge you based on the degree.
That's a fact.
And so it just gives you more possibilities if you're going to go into that corporate world. And you don't have to, now, do not go to school and get $70,000 worth of loans, right? You can be just as effective if you go to community college for 2 years and do that extremely cheaply, and then finish off your degree at a university, a cheaper university.
That you want to show on your diploma.
Yeah, and then you got your degree, because it doesn't really matter that much where that degree comes from. And again, the key thing is you could go to college and not learn anything, or you could go to college and make the most of it. It depends on what you make that experience. And then there's this other side too that I would say, like, what am I going to do with my own kids? My daughter, my plan for her is to say, hey, you can go to college if you want to, but there's another alternative, which is you never have to take a regular job. If you want to go the entrepreneurial road, then don't necessarily go to college, and learn on your own, and build a business, and learn by failing, and learn while you've got the safety net of living at home, and build this thing. It depends on the road, I think, and that's so for someone who's wanting to just go the traditional route and work for someone else, I'd say go get the degree, but get it the cheapest way as possible, and maximize what you learn when you do it. Don't ever delegate the responsibility of your education to someone else. It's always your responsibility. And I'd say for someone who is sure they want to go the entrepreneurial route and doesn't ever want to work for someone else, probably something I would have chosen back now that I've done that, then maybe just learning completely online would make sense. But either way you go, you're going to have to expand your education. It's not, if you get a degree, that does not teach you what you need to become a software developer. It teaches what you need to begin to become a software developer.
Yeah.
And then that's where things like Pluralsight are excellent resources, where you're going to be able to expand that knowledge and quickly learn from experts, get that kind of mentoring that is hard to find on your own. But it's still, I still call that teaching yourself, because you're going and finding the resources. You're not depending on some program or.
Well, it's telling that you'll find people that have come out of even a very reputable program, and they're not suited.
Right. Exactly.
And you'll find people that come out of a lot of self-learning effort, and they're not suited, and the vice versa for both of those. So you can tell just by that fact alone that it's more about you and what you decide to do, and you choosing to be your own delegate and making the best out of your situation, as opposed to just the process that you choose. It'd be nice if we could just check this box and do this thing, and all of a sudden it's going to turn us into what we want to be, but that's not the way it works.
And the other piece of this is that the battle is fought anew each day, right? You have to continually learn. Your education never stops. And when you die, then you stop learning. But up until then, you have to be learning every day. That's just especially as software developers, right? We are in an industry. Technology is going by at such a blazingly fast speed that if you do not adapt a skill to be able to continuously learn and to teach yourself things, and that you're continually doing that, you're going to be outdated. You're going to miss out on huge opportunities.
Yeah.
So
there's
really
even a lot of
important.
people in a lot of completely unrelated roles, not related to development or technology, that are having to reinvent their technological skills just because that's an integral part of whatever it is that they do every day.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, one more question for you, John.
Okay.
How does a person, and maybe specifically a person in this development field, how do they manage their time, prioritize their time, and make good choices with their time, and still be effective? And by effective, I mean they're advancing in their career, they're making good money, you know, they're having a quality of life in all of the various ways that you could define that. And I'm thinking of family,
right,
especially. And I'm talking about people that are learning, and so they're doing all the work of learning, or people that are working, and so they're doing all the work of working. Maybe they're even working as entrepreneurs, so they're extra under extra demand. How do you prioritize and handle all that?
So there's a few big things. You know, one thing I always recommend for people is to start tracking their time. Do that for a couple of days. Track every hour of your day and see where you're spending your time, because I find that most people can 3 times their effectiveness. Like they're wasting.
They can triple it, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And when I first started tracking my time, I didn't believe that was the case, but I found it. Especially working a regular job, I found that at work I wasn't being very effective. I was like in the top tier of software developers. I wasn't a lazy developer by any means, but I was only working hard on actual productive things that actually ended up producing maybe like 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day, and the rest of the time was spent in meetings that weren't very, very productive, or you know, administrative tasks and things like that, or talking. You know, you spend a lot of time chatting with coworkers and stuff like that, or that you don't realize. So and that's just in your work, right? Then when you look at your life in general, a lot of people waste their lives watching TV. You know, this is one of the biggest, like if you're looking for time, all the time I get...
It might be right there.
Exactly. Developers are like, I want to start a business. I don't have the time. I don't have the 10 hours, you know, a week or whatever. Like, well, if you make the sacrifice to cut out TV, you'll have that time. So that's a really easy big win for a lot of people. And it's really a matter of looking. Once you have figured out your schedule and where you're spending your time, then you go and you analyze it and you say, where am I doing things inefficiently, and where can I maximize the value? What are the things that I'm doing that are producing the biggest result for me?
Yeah, right.
And that's something that I did, and I have a system now. I use this system where I have a board. I plan out my entire week, and I use a time box using the Pomodoro technique, which is, you know, work for 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute break. And I'm able to really determine exactly what I'm going to work on during the week and stick to that. And so I'm controlling the priorities and I'm planning things out. I'm not letting things happen to chance. I'm not just saying, well, I'm going to do work today.
Yeah, right.
I have an objective. I know what I'm supposed to get done, and that allows me to prioritize, because ultimately what ends up becoming the most important thing is number one, that you're actually spending enough time doing work, but that you're steering the ship in the right direction. Because if you're going the wrong direction, as Stephen Covey says in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, if you have the ladder up against the wrong wall,
climb all you want.
Right, exactly. And so a lot of people, they don't even know what wall. You don't have a goal, you don't have a focus. So that's where setting the priorities comes into place, and you have to really make this a part of your schedule, and to really think about this to be as effective as possible, because you don't want to spin your wheels.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's some good information. I think that's all the time we have for today. So thanks a lot for joining me, and I hope we both enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us on CodeChat. See you next time.